Good evening and welcome. We're live again on screen with AYV on Sunday. President Bio officially declared the Governance Transition Team GTT on 6th April 2018, just 2 days after he was sworn into office. Now, an astonishing level of fiscal indiscipline and rampant corruption by the former APC government of President Ernest Bai Koroma had led to the near collapse of Sierra Leone's economy by the time the government of President Julius Maada Bio was sworn into office. The economy was left burdened with external debt amounting to about $1.6 billion, domestic debt amounting to 4.99 trillion leones or $658 million, and an exploded payroll, salaries and other compensation for government employees of 2 trillion leones, which is about $263 million or 14.4% of the GDP. Now, the national currency became moribund, trading at 7,600 leones to a dollar. In addition, the government owes vendors for goods and services an extremely large amount of $1.4 billion. The state's liabilities as at 30th of March 2018 amounted to $3.7 billion. Inflation as at March 2018 was 17.2%. Now, President Bio and his team clearly stated that the underlying principal objective of the GTT report was to promote democracy, accountability, credibility, fairness, and proportionality. In the report, the President vowed to provide a disciplined leadership for the efficient management of the state, including state resources, among other areas in governance. Tonight, we ask the following questions. Has President Bio really succeeded in running a government with effective management of the state, including state resources, as stated in the GTT report? Has this government ardently practiced the impeccable good governance principle projected in some of the recommendations spotted in the GTT report? Is this government guilty or innocent of the very allegations of bad governance practices levied on the previous regime, as stated in their GTT report? Tonight, we will deep dive into some of these issues. This is AYV on Sunday. There is an equity maxim in law which states that he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. This current government, in their GTT report, alleged that President Koroma's government failed massively in its budgetary discipline by embarking on what they described in the report as accelerated spending spree, mostly of prepaid taxes from the iron ore companies in anticipation of bonuses from their export. They alleged the indebtedness at home and abroad accelerated, creating an insidious state of dependency and forced austerity. Tonight, we will find out if the hands of these current government are clean from bad governance practices highlighted in the GTT report. This is AYV on Sunday, and I am Fabian Sweel. Good evening and welcome again. Joining us tonight is a team of live audience whom we shall be hearing from later on in the program. You're highly encouraged there to participate in the program by simply dropping a comment or question about the topic on our Facebook page, AYV News. On the panel tonight, we have Andrew Lavely, Executive Director, Institute for Governance Reform, IGR. Honorable Abdul Karim Kagbo, Whip for the, Kamara, Whip for the Opposition or People's Congress in Parliament, and Honorable Bamichidi, former Member of Parliament for the SLPP. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me in the program today.
Good evening. Good evening.
And good evening to our live audience. On Zoom, we have Kadiatu Koroma, founder and president, Women for Women Foundation, and also a member, African Women Leaders Network. We were also expecting to have Bakari Abdulaziz Bawo, Deputy Minister of Information and Civic Education, as they had confirmed as a ministry that he would be in the studio today to be part of the conversation from the government side. Few hours to the program, unfortunately, the production team received a message from the Deputy Minister of information that unfortunately he cannot be a part of the conversation. We also extended an opportunity to join the program virtually through a Zoom link, which he declined to. Just to note that we had extended an invitation to the government to be part of the conversation. Let's start the conversation tonight. The GTT report itself, I'll start with Andrew Lavely. IGR had done another document follow-up much after that as well. The GTT report exposed many Sierra Leoneans to what was going on in the government, from corruption to lack of financial discipline and the contributing factor that had to the economy that even led us to austerity. Fast forward to where we are today in 2025 from 2018, going by the things that the GTT report itself captured, what has changed?
I don't know what has changed. If you look at our last report, one of the things that we are clear about, that regimes in Sierra Leone always change personnel, and then they fail to actually change the system that generates underperformance. You know, one of our papers, which we title "Overcoming Underperformance," one of the biggest conclusion is that there's a lot of focus on personnel change. When APC is in power, SLPP focuses on personnel change. When SLPP is in power, APC's focus is how do we change them, instead of actually looking at the underlying conditions that generate underperformance, and then see how do we change those underlying conditions. So let me just give you a little bit of highlights of some of the key things in the report, which really chimes in very well with some of the things you mentioned. So for example, the GTT report, and by the way, one of the things which was not mentioned in your intro, President Bio's SLPP came to power on the grounds of, giving a new direction to Sierra Leone. And a new direction is not the number of things you accomplish, but just changing course. Say we have been moving in this direction, but this direction is absolutely wrong. How do you move from that direction to a better direction?
Are we now in a new direction?
It's left with the audience to judge. But let me just say...
But you have a report there. You've done some findings.
The direction seems pretty much the same. Occupancy of private buildings by public offices. The GTT report said there are quite a lot of, under APC, there are quite a lot of private buildings that are being occupied by government offices. And the report said that some of these private buildings are rented at very high cost, exorbitant cost from these private individuals, and sometimes linked with politicians. We realize that it's more or less the same. We still see the same practice happening. Mismanagement of government assets. There are quite a number of government. When they say the wealth of the state is not just how much you have in your bank's account, but how much asset you have. So one of the areas that the GTT, and I encourage listeners and viewers to actually go to the GTT report, which actually documents very neatly most of the bad things that happen under APC, that the SLPP said we are committed to changing this. We realize that there is still mismanagement of government assets. If you can check the Asset Commission, in fact, hardly do you see in Sierra Leone a full asset register of the asset that Sierra Leoneans have. In fact, sometimes we mention in one of our reports that asset management is one of the ways in which public officials transfer state assets to themselves and the cronies. So we haven't seen this changing. Multiplication and duplication of state institutions. This was decried loudly by the GTT report, that there was a duplication and overlap of government agencies and commissions, which led to the overbloat of wage bill. It's pretty much the same. You go to the youth sector, there are many agencies leading to, managing youth. So under SLPP, we have seen similar engagements of multiple and duplication of government agencies and commissions, leading to the overbloat of the wage bill. So we see that. Mismanagement of critical investment contracts. So the APC was criticized for mismanaging the toll road, Income Electric, the sale of the shares of Sierra Leone shares of Sierra Rutile. I encourage you to go to the GTT report and you be the judge to say, judging what I'm seeing today, what what is the difference. So we also see capital investments happening under the SLPP with questionable investment. You see the IPAM campus. There's this huge mismanagement of IPAM campus, and we're closely looking at other investment contracts, say for example the airport. Ethnicity, and this is more important, and sometimes when we talk about mismanagement, we too often focus on corruption, but for us at the Institute of Governance Reform, we think it as proper to look at corruption, but I think it's more important to look at how institutions are being respected. So for example, look at ethnicity. So in the GTT report, APC was very much criticized for bringing in quite a lot of northerners. So in fact, they call it, SLPP in opposition, they call it northernization of government.
What does your findings say from your own report? Has that changed in the current administration of employment?
It has flipped from northernization to something like Southeasternization. So we see, for example, the Afrobarometer report which we did, it showed that 35%, that was in 2012, of citizens said that their ethnic group is treated unfairly by government. And when we did Afrobarometer just in 2022, 10 years on, 36% of ethnic people of Sierra Leoneans said their ethnic groups are treated unfairly by the government. And these are ethnic identities that are largely in the northern and northwestern regions under the SLPP. So we see, I mean, a vicious cycle of a repeat of some of the misrule that has been criticized. So that's why in our paper on overcoming underperformance, we really encourage political parties, especially the two leading parties, the opposition and the ruling governing parties, instead of focusing on changing personnel, there should be commitment to changing the processes, the systems, or we call it the architecture that is generating underperformance. So if you ask SLPP, what do you want to change? Too often the conversation is left in the dust. If you ask APC, what is it that you are committed to changing? And too often you also see that the conversation is left sometimes not well understood. So it was on that basis that we wrote this paper looking at overcoming underperformance. And there are key issues, say for example, the way justice is managed. So if you can see, after managing the judiciary for years, the APC came out to say, I cannot go to court. And so these are some of the challenges.
We'll look at the justice part on how justice is managed. But one of the things that was mentioned in the GTT report is about the contracts awarded or managed under the APC administration with mining companies, and in very nice ways, but suggesting kickbacks here and there, how that was affecting us. Fast forward to where we are today. Is the government successfully managing these contracts and agreements, including a case in point right now, the situation with Koidu Holdings? Has it changed? Is the current government responsibly managing the agreements with these mining companies in country?
Beyond agreement, so clearly when you see Koidu Holdings, there has been this case of the First Lady going to Koidu Holdings, mounting, staging a demonstration. I think beyond just this whole thing talk about Sierra Leoneans not getting a fair deal.
And part of what the First Lady submitted during that protest is almost an exact reflection of what the GTT report captured that was happening in the previous administration. Exactly. In so many words, though calling them dogs, she spoke about people who are trading the welfare of the people for brown envelopes, which in so many different words, but in the same sense, is exactly what the GTT report captures for the APC administration.
Exactly. So that's why if you look at the returns in 2023, Sierra Leone actually, just on iron ore alone, Sierra Leone exported $1.16 billion. I saw you quoting figures just on iron ore. Do you know what came in at receipt? Only $40 million for Sierra Leone. So with the minerals we have, normally when political parties want to come to power, they say we can use the mineral with the right stewardship, we can use the wealth on the ground, to take care of our health. We can use the wealth on the ground to take care of education. So, but we see regime after regime, there's over-reliance on foreign aid to take care of health, on foreign aid to take care of education. I mean, so for those that have been paying attention, you saw the conversation between Donald Trump and the Ukraine president. I mean, when he went to the White House, one of the things he said, I want, basically Trump was saying, I want you to trade your mineral deposits for peace. So it means that Sierra Leone can actually trade the deposit we have to get good roads, to get good education, to get good health care. So the question has been, and this is where we agree entirely with Adesanya, the question is not a mineral resource. They say Sierra Leone, a lot of countries with huge mining deposits are being caused by the mines and mineral deposits that they have, the mining wealth. So Adesanya was saying it's actually a leadership cause, not the mines and minerals, because the mines and minerals are intended to be resources that can be utilized to advance the welfare of the citizens of the state. So time after time, the politics of Sierra Leone, there's one guy, James Robinson, that in one of his books, Why Nations Fail, he described this very well. He called it extractive politics. So we have institutions such, for example, the judiciary, the police, they should be delivering justice. And so when you have situations where some of these institutions are seen to be an instrument in the hands of governing elites, not to deliver services, but to control the state, to control society, then it becomes a problem. So it becomes a problem. So you have a situation where citizens will continue to vote, we will change regimes like T-shirts, but our condition does not change. It's because the institutions are not inclusive enough to deliver the results that citizens so desire. So that's why I really encourage listeners, I really encourage them to look at the reports where we mirrored both practices under both regimes, and then really invite the political parties to begin to see how they can refine attributes, refine attitudes, refine institutions, reform practices, so that you can have a greater good for the greater Sierra Leone.
I'll come right back to you. Let's go to Honorable Bamichidi. Part of the things captured in the GTT report, it mentioned the exchange rate. Back then it was about 7,600 for a dollar. Fast forward to where we are in 2025, it's about 2,400,000 and something, a significant change thereof. But those were part of the issues that were captured by the SLPP then in opposition, now in government, that even our resources, our economy, we've drastically mismanaged. The APC mismanaged our economy, mismanaged our resources, leading us to a point of complaining that it was 7,600 today, it's 2,400. Has this government, is it that they could not understand the problems in the office before making those perhaps hasty statements, considering the picture of the reality of Sierra Leone currently?
Thank you very much, Fabian. The classic thing about it, have we learned any lessons from Commission of Inquiries since Albert Magai to date? MPRC. Nothing we have learned. Turn for turn, that we turn, till we get that mentality out of our mind and start thinking positively Sierra Leone. And we did a report at this transitional thing. That's why the whole problem as alone hinges. That transitional thing, we don't have transition. Because the whole thing could have been managed properly if that chief minister did not made and talk with no concern. Praise is right. But at the same time, you should look at situation. Because don't forget, we have the politics in Sierra Leone is slightly different. You talk about ethnic audit, because what they are doing now, and the problem is when this report was going, government was spending money to executive order without going through budget lines. And that's the most important thing. They grumble about that one during the APC, that the executive, it has been misused. But nobody have decided to stop it. That is why even the inquiry didn't move forward. So what should we be looking at now? Lesson learned from the Commission of Inquiry of 1966, 67.
Would you say the SLPP government was committing a fallacy of hasty conclusion?
I won't use fallacy of hasty conclusion. Depends on which side of the fence.
I'm still stuck on the dollar was 7,600.
But yeah, that is what you see. One thing is why sometimes I don't go into depth. I don't go into details of that one. The dollar was 240 at the time when Pakababili. The dollar was 240. Then it came up to 7, but it was manageable. And then the economic policy started by the governor, who created panic along the economic district. He created panic, the governor of Sierra Leone, by sending ripples down the line that, I don't know what was he thinking about. It's when you're in a classroom, stick to the classroom. It's the same Bank of Sierra Leone that is running the economy now, which has stabilized the dollar to 2.4 for the last 1 year. What was that man doing? But the point is, I'll blame him in the opposition. I'll blame him in the civil society. This government came in on transparency, accountability. That was the bedrock of that thing. And then later on, the education comes in as the flagship.
Speaking of transparency and accountability, though captured in the GTT report, also during the inauguration, what President Bio mentioned, that the three wars he was going to wage, one war was on corruption. And tying that corruption to the GTT report, they said it exposed a lot of racketeering in the previous administration. But the GTT report itself was predicated on the work of the Audit Service Sierra Leone under Lagatelo Pias, who now, fast forward to doing an investigation into the office of the presidency on alleged fake receipts, and everything boomeranged to getting a whole commission to now taking it to parliament. Does that suggest a hypocrisy?
This chairman parliament?
The whole corruption fight and the whole condemnation of corruption under the APC administration, and utilizing the work of the Audit Service Sierra Leone under the leadership of Lara Taylor Pierce, coming now to a point where her work was condemned, and then the allegation of corruption, forged receipts,
yes,
in the office of the presidency. Not much has been heard about an investigation into that situation itself, but there was an investigation into the people conducting the audit, not the situation of the alleged fake receipts.
But at least they've passed it now, they've impeached the thing. But the problem, that's why the problem is in Sierra Leone. We are always reactive, not proactive. You are talking about corruption, but he did it the last time. They point out so many flaws within the administration of the executive, and people are happy to point it out. But sometimes when you look at the situation in Sierra Leone, I told you, the most thing that we don't go through transition.
Do the current situations as how President Bio's administration handles and manages corruption allegations, especially as it connects to people within his administration, do the handlings of these situations suggest a seriousness on President Bio's administration to fight against corruption?
The level of seriousness, that's why I question. Because sometimes, when you look at, say, Namion Kabaldis, they have to be protected. Whether you like it or not, stay away. Don't touch that till. That's the basic policy one should follow. But it's so difficult for Sierra Leoneans to make sure they don't touch that till, but at the same time, they are doing the negative thing because it is job for the boys. Because look at the Tomabum incident. How many billions went down the drain? They came back with irrigation down the drain. And what are you talking about? Food security. When the basic ones the government has provided has been misused and nobody has read anything. So to me, Lara Taylor Pierce, our own business was just by saying the truth, which nobody wants to accept. That's all. And the problem is we should be looking even this impeachment too. Parliament should look at it or ask for interpretation in the Supreme Court. At which point are you going to use 2/3 to drive somebody, or is it you're going to go by the speaker election? And the modus operandi of employing her is totally different. But at the same time, we allow, say, in the interest of let's sleeping dog like, let me go down to today.
Let's come to I wanted to say the honorable, but in this case we have two honorables in the program. So, Kadiatu, I know you're still with us there on Zoom. Are you there? Okay, good. I was just checking to make sure you're still there with us. Now let's look at this whole situation. The two words that were very prominent on the lips of many of the SLPP folks was new direction. What's new in this direction, considering the findings of the GTT report and its recommendation in the handling of the state resources, management of state resources, the efficiency of this administration managing state resources, remembering the two key words, new direction, and having in mind the GTT report and the findings of your government in the previous administration?
You know, it's an interesting one. But let me try to explain it this way. Yeah. First of all, the words were new direction, but the arrow was pointing backwards. That is one thing Sierra Leoneans did not understand in the slogan and if you look at the posters of President Bio throughout the elections, the wordings were new direction, but the arrow was going backwards. So it reflects the reality of what the situation is today. But let me take you through something very interesting. And I'm going to take you through actually what the GTT report said on a specific person. And I try not to create troubles for myself, but this is what the GTT report said. In the case of former President Koroma, I'll take three scenario cases that were around him. One, the Linkonkwi situation in which he gave one plot of land to a former minister whose house was broken for the Linkonkwi to stand where it is today. That is one of his crimes. The second crime was the Sewas ground. He said, I want this building being constructed within 1 year. That is a crime. According to the GT report, it speed up the contractor, and that is a crime. And the Rokel Commercial Bank loan that was given to them by government to boost up the bank. But in the first case, today we see government go to the OAU villas, even where houses are. The compound around the houses are being fenced today. Houses are being built inside government's lands without nobody saying a single word. So if it was a crime to give 2 town lots to a minister whose house was sacrificed for the benefit of our generations yet unborn, what will you say of those who are building currently in state lands where state buildings are currently occupying? Secondly, you talk about the Rokel Commercial Bank. There is no viable entity currently in Sierra Leone that gives more profits to the state than the Rokel Commercial Bank. It's only our 2 banks, because the one that was doing more than them was the Zulab, where interestingly we saw a situation where this government was making like $6 million a year. They gave up $6 million only to get $1 million on yearly basis. So it's 6 minus $5 million goes to somebody somewhere. And you come to talk about the Sewa grounds. Recently, I was with whilst we were reading the audit report. Interestingly, I'm a member of the PAC, and we were talking about the vehicles bought for Paramount Chiefs. Interestingly, the money was paid to a Malian company. This Malian company does not even have an account in Sierra Leone. They don't have a personnel in Sierra Leone, and even their transit account is in Liberia, not even in Sierra Leone. And we asked, how did you get to this situation? He said it was a sole sourcing, and they have the instruction from the Office of the President. This was a direct report from the Ministry of Transport saying we had an instruction from the Office of the President to do this contract with this company. Opposed to the Sewas ground, which the only time President Nkrumah committed was to say, I want this project within 1 year. So all of in these 3 scenarios I've listed that brought the whole ulabalu about President Nkrumah and the GTT, all of them similarly, if today President Bio leaves office and you have a president like him taking over, is going to come again to answer all of these crimes under the same rubric of the GTT report. Come to talk about it. Go to the Ministry of Works. It will be interesting to know that Miata Conference Center has been under renovation for almost 5 years. Yet still we are allocating monies to Miata Conference Center for cleaning. How do you clean a building that is under construction, that is under a company to be rehabilitated? They are rehabilitating the structure, but yet still we are allocating monies to it. One of the things I studied critically from the audit report, there are 3 positive things in the audit report the GTT said about the past government. It's in the area of works when it comes to road. They commended our government that we did well when it comes to road. We open up roads, we built road where roads were not. Though, according to them, it was expensive, and when they come to power, they will go into contracts that are less expensive. But even the road going to Teon is still, though negotiated over and over again, is still not constructed. Come to talk about they also said the audit report. See, one of the good things the government kept working and viable was the audit report. So the best, they even said one of the most effective Sierra Leonean at the time was loyalty of peers. And when you read the GTT report and you read the audit report in almost 5 years, starting from 2012 to 2018, you just see the GTT report is a plagiarism of exactly what was in the audit report. But interestingly, today, people don't even want to talk about the audit reports. And when you talk about them, they say, oh, it's just an opinion. I say, okay. But this opinion has been used and people's houses have been seized. People have been frustrated to death using the same audit report. People's traveling documents have been seized and they could not go for medical overseas and they've died. We've had a situation in which people today, even the daughter of the president, the former president, was harassed just after we handed over because of a vehicle. As I speak, I'll name 4 ministries: the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Agriculture, even the new...
You've called agriculture twice.
I've called agriculture twice. Well, let me go again. I am naming them because there is a syndicate which I call a state looting scheme. Government buying new vehicles, they buy new
No, it would be good for us to hear the names of these ministries you mentioned.
Agriculture,
you called agriculture twice.
Go to all these references I'm making reference directly to the audit reports. 2021, 2023, agriculture, health, you go to works, you go to transport, you go to energy. It's all over the place. Government buy vehicles and bikes, they are not being registered. They are not being licensed, not insured, not registered. And when auditors call for them to bring the vehicles for audit purpose, they don't even present them. So this is a state enterprise of looting, because if government is buying and you're not licensing them, you don't have register of those items being bought, they could easily be carted away. And this is what is happening in Sierra Leone. And people tell us every other day, oh, we're doing well. Bamichidi mentioned the issue of Tomabom. You know, the Tomabom project, I went to Tomabom and I watched the comic relief of the comic situation of Tomabom is the whole of Tomabom, with all the much talks about Tomabom project, it only have 10 stores, which are transitional stores, in which you say, okay, after the rice will be cultivated and everything, we'll put them in this store to sell. You're talking about the rice bowl of Sierra Leone, where rice is actually to be produced to feed this nation, and you're only talking about 10 small Fulaman shops. It's ironical. And when you go to the audit report, it tells you, the 2023 audit report is saying, in the Ministry of Agriculture, only 25% of its target is what they've actually accomplished, 25% of the yearly target in 2024. So it's a shame. It's a shame that we have a regime that capitalize on the minds of people, using both civil society agents to say, oh, this current regime is corrupt, this current regime is not good for purpose, this current regime is not this. And today, when they feed on the flesh of the ordinary Sierra Leoneans, people want to compare and say, oh, it's normal. It's not normal. It will never be normal. What we have currently is we're almost at a state collapse. That's where we are, and we must confront the current regime and tell them they are not good for purpose. That's what I have said over the years.
Honorable Abdul Karim, part of also what was mentioned against your administration, your party's administration, was indiscipline in managing budget of the country. It also factored in the wage bill, how bloated it was, and lack of fiscal discipline by the government, contributing towards the economic hardship of this nation. Today, with what is the current reality, what would be your submission on that?
Even with the rebasing, even with the rebasing of the economy, it is worse than it has ever been. Even with the rebasing of the economy. Let's go back. At the time, I refer you to the first budget speech of J.J. Safar in Parliament. He said, though the borrowing, you understand, the debts and everything, he said, but our country is not under debt distress. This was in 2018. But by 2023, before we went into election, Sierra Leone was almost at a point where we are under debt distress. The wage bill, at the time they were shouting about all this wage bill and every other thing they talked about the wage bill, our wage bill was still below 50% of our GDP. Today, as we speak, our wage bill is all. By the time we pay our wage, the wages and salaries of our workers, there is nothing left for government to utilize. That's the current state we find ourselves. Look at the salary of the medium workers, like teachers. At the time, teachers were paid like 1.5 million. That was almost an equivalent of $200. Today, you pay them the same $1.5, it's almost just $50 to $60. So it's a complete shattered economy. There is no better way to say it than to say the current situation we face ourselves as a country, the economy is out of hands. You brought in many, I remember we asked the bank governor in Parliament, why do you think we need to redominate our currency? He said because they don't keep the money in the house. And in front of Parliament, he told us he had to bribe to bring out the currency. So the situation is, President Bio was not lucky. He brought in people who are inexperienced about governance, people who have no idea about governance, people who had nothing to do with governance. And imagine they say, okay, based on the GTT report, say Mr. Kamara's house he built, based on his salary he's earning, he's not supposed to build this kind of house. Use the same equation today for most people who are ministers and tell me what result you will get. You talk about people like Minkai Luba, who lectured for almost 15 years and became minister for 10 years and built just one small house, one flat. You see, according to the GTT report, they was not supposed to build that house. So what will you say of current ministers who have never worked? This is their first major job they've ever had, and yet still they build mansions. What will you say of them? It's a situation we find ourselves as a country in which people speak either based on their ethnic background or they speak based on their political origin. But let me say this sad thing about Sierra Leoneans. We've seen institutional, people clear institution to bring in their tribesmen and everybody keeps silent. Go currently to Parliament. Recently, you must have gone through the situation around Parliament, in which almost 120 staffs were removed from Parliament, and they said it's because we don't have space. As we speak, almost 180 have been admitted to Parliament again. With no process, no procedure. And when you check their names, they are 90% all from the southeast. And yes, the people know this and they keep quiet. Go to statistics.
Let's quickly head to Zoom. We still have Kadiatu Kuroma, founder and president of Women for Women Foundation. Good evening again, Kadiatu. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Vivian.
I suppose you followed the conversation throughout. as we've been discussing in the studio. But I'd like to hear your perspective. Is this current administration, the government of President Julius Maada Bio, innocent of the crimes, mismanagement of resources, and all the things they accused the former administration, the President Ernest Bai Koroma-led administration of? Is President Julius Maada Bio's administration innocent of all those wrongs?
Okay, from a CSO perspective, I would like to say that the GTT report emanates from an investigation that was done to look at how the APC or the former government handles power in terms of contract, like you mentioned earlier on, and also poor accountability, wastage of government funds, and also issues on unexplained wealth. But I also want us to take note that this current government has not been investigated. So therefore, we cannot say they are guilty or they are innocent on the issues they are trying to accuse the former government for. But I also want us to take note that despite we have the ACC, which is the Anti-Corruption Commission, we are still having corruption cases. So I think as a nation, we have to think and look back. Like, for example, is it that because the Anti-Corruption Commission Act says that the president has the power to elect the commissioner? Imagine the president elect you as a commissioner. Will you be able to be more credible? Will you be able to act more independently? So I think that as a nation, we have to think and visit that law again. How we should think about putting it straight. Like, for example, we should not only select people based on regions or tribes or political association, but we should also think on selecting people who have the right capacity to lead. Like, for example, let's say that we are talking about the Anti-Corruption Commission commissioner. We should be thinking about having people who have a very high professional background and also integrity, people that really have the qualification or meets the criteria, not only focus on people who are associated to the political party. So in terms of credibility and also people to trust the commissioner, to have public trust, I think we should also think about security of tenure. Because let's say, for example, the past government appointed a commissioner, and then we have the APC. So the commissioner will know that I am going to be removed. So if the act of the ACC says that there is a certain amount of time that the commissioner should lead, this will give the commissioner the security and the power to know that I am in this space for the next 5 years. I'm not going to be removed because I did not do this or I did not do that. This will promote credibility. So security of tenure is something that is very important. We should think about so that we can be able to address this corruption we are talking about. And also building on what my colleague Andrew talks about, I think our leaders, they need to do more in terms of not focusing on changing personnel, because that's what we have been doing over the years in Sierra Leone. And that is why we are not actually seeing the change that we are wishing to see as Sierra Leonean. I think our leaders now should think about focusing on changing systems and processes and making governance more inclusive. Like my other brother talks about, Honorable says, I think a certain ministry, there are a lot of people who are from the Southeast. Okay, the parliament, he mentioned about the parliament. We should think about having a more inclusive leadership, more inclusive governance, so that we don't only select people that are from our region, but people that have the capacity to deliver despite not being from our region or from our part. But before I close, I want to say something. I cannot say, like I mentioned earlier on, I will not say that the current government, which is the SFPP, is guilty or innocent because they have not being investigated. So I will not say they are. But a question I want to ask us as Sierra Leonean, do you think that the current government is guilty or innocent? Will we be able to have a single political leader presently that will come out to talk about their wealth, and we were able to commensurate, like, I have this 10 house, is the wealth you're having equivalent to the salary or the benefit you are having. So we should also think about that at Sierra Leonean. Thank you very much, Philians.
I'm gonna still with you on this. So the premise of what led to the Lara Telopia situation was an investigation into an alleged fake receipt submitted to audit service within the office of the president. But since that situation, attention has been put more on professional conduct of those who conducted the investigation, the auditing. But we've not heard much from the government's perspective, whether it's Parliament looking into the audit reports or the ACC looking into the allegation itself of alleged fake receipts within the office of the presidency. For President Bio, who spoke very energetically at the inauguration, talking about the 3 wars he's waging, one against corruption and what the GTT report captured. What does this mean for his administration in the fight against corruption? That within his office, charity begins at home, within his office, there is an allegation of alleged or fake receipts. We've not heard from anyone about an investigation into that.
Yes, Fabian. Like I said earlier on, I think as a nation, we really have to be serious and intentional about the decision we are making. Remember, when President Bio took over power, they talked about the new direction, and they talked about transparency and accountability and the fight against corruption. But the question is, are they really ready to fight corruption? And the question to us, are we really ready as Sierra Leoneans to fight corruption? Because most of the time when we are talking about we want to fight this, we want to fight that, you are saying it because you are not in that space or in that situation. What if you are found guilty of a certain situation? Would you want you to be investigated? So I want us to think as Sierra Leonean to put our country first, not to focus on, I am from this region, these are my people, I need to protect this set of people. We need to be intentional about what we're doing.
Come back to Andrew Laverly in the studio. I'm also curious to hear your thoughts on this. The same question I asked Kadia to that situation of an alleged fake receipt within the office of the president. What does that say about President Bio's administration and the fight against corruption?
It's really a lack of responsiveness to audit queries. So we expected State House to be more responsive.
Mind you, when this whole thing happened like 2-3 years ago, we were the first institution that actually did a survey in 5 cities in Sierra Leone, and 57% of the public was saying that the suspension of the Auditor General is a risk to financial management processes. And then, so we all know where, we also where it ended. The reality is, I think that situation should have been avoided. The fact of the matter is audit queries should be responded to. And it's really, I have some numbers here. Only 33% of audit queries are implemented. In fact, we did a paper just 6 months after the suspension of the Auditor General. We did a paper that we call Audit Tears, T-E-A-R-S. It's not only the tear the audit, but the cry of the audit. And we looked at 2,556 recommendations over 7 years. And then the question was which recommendations have been implemented. I hear the Honorable talking about people calling Auditor General's reports a mere, what was the word?
Opinion.
A mere opinion. So this is what is bandied by both political parties, that it's a mere opinion. That's why you have only 33% of audit queries being implemented. It behoves Parliament, all the committees of Parliament, Committee on Education, Committee on Transport, to ensure that the audit recommendations are being enforced. But we all know what happens in Parliament, for want of a better word. When we say Parliament is going on oversight, we all know what happens. Until and unless the political culture changes, until unless we change the political culture, the situation is not going to be different. And clearly, Sierra Leoneans should all note that what we have beneath the surface, the place that God endowed us to be, is quite enough to take care of us. But I think what we actually need to do is to be clear about what we want to see. And this is where FIBA is good to recommend. Like, for example, how do we have a situation where, I like what my colleague said, the point she re-echoed about the change of system, not just a change of personnel. We are now going to 2028. The whole conversation here on the lips of many Sierra Leoneans and political parties, who is going to come or who is going to stay, not which systems are we going to change. How do we become better off? We have a justice system almost split down the middle between one faction that call themselves the Bar Association and another faction that calls themselves Lawyer Society. But there is no group, political group that is coming up with a blueprint to say this is how we want to see justice be run. That is different from what it has been under APC, under SLPP. Say, for example, basic things like performance system. If we have a performance system that shows how are lawyers promoted, how are lawyers transferred, we have this situation, like all of the fights we see today, the demonstration, the riot we see, is because people feel that under a particular political system, I am not catered for. I live in a country that I'm not part of. So what you do at home and abroad is how do you remove that system to replace it with something you call your own. It's not working. So we have this situation where, in fact, the last time we checked, we did a paper on the cost of violent demonstration and political conflicts and violence demonstration and political tension. It turned out that just in 2023, what we lost in terms of percentage shares of GDP was $416 million. For every day we sit down, that we do not go to work. In fact, we counted over about 42 days that we sat down, we did not go to work. So this is how politics have grounded this country to its needs. There is no efficiency in terms of state institutions, how they are managed. All what you see between political parties is how they trade accusations. So what we want to hear, I think, which will be a breath of fresh air for many Sierra Leoneans, this is what we can do differently. So, for example, if the day we see, and we're actually challenging, for example, the justice system, because if we address justice, if politicians know that if I do this something untoward, there will be consequences, they will be afraid. So what some of the things we're looking to see is how do we ensure that every lawyer, be it SLPP lawyer, be it APC lawyer, we are also Sierra Leoneans, it's clear that this is how promotions and transfers are being done. So, for example, what Honorable Kabu was talking about, what is happening in Parliament, there was a particular system that SLPP felt this was an AP system. They have replaced it with a system that they call SLPP system. How do we stop it? The only way to stop it is when we come with a blueprint that it becomes predictable that these are the conditions on which we employ people, and we ensure that no political party, go against that. The reason why we see our country different from other countries is because systems work, rule of law works. So I think to be honest, you are quite right that things are very, very bad, and any Sierra Leonean that be SLPP, be APC, to say that things are fine, you are lying to yourself. Let me tell you a bit. When I was going to school, I can proudly say I attended Christ the King College. There was a time one of my seniors that went to the school before me, he was saying, so there was a time we had biology practicals. Just in Bo, can you imagine this Sierra Leone? The Sierra National Airline came and took from six form pupils. They went and flew on top of the River Sewa for 40 minutes for geography practicals, and they came and dropped them at the airfield. This is Sierra Leone, and they came back to class. At that time, we had students from Jara University College coming to our laboratory, our labs to work. We need an efficient society. I mean, this thing about trading accusations without profiling solutions, I think is a problem. I mean, that's why, for me, it becomes a breath of fresh air when we get conversations that are solution-centered. But we cannot continue like this. We cannot continue because, in fact, I asked one of the judges, I said, what if by 2023, one of the major political parties say, I cannot go to your court. We will, it will become a monster, it will become difficult to handle. So I think it behoves all of us, and I say this on both sides of the divide, to lower the rhetoric and provide solutions. And I think what a lot of people want to see, I mean, I can see a young man from McKinney, a young man from Bo, they face the same circumstance. They are unemployed. They, in fact, normally what politicians are good at is how they hire them to go out to burn villages and attack their opponents while their kids are abroad waiting to come and replace them. So what is going to be the breath of fresh air? That's something that we can all, you know, I was looking at one of, there was a country that I was looking at in one of our reviews for the paper we just did. It's Georgia. So Georgia in the early 2000s, their leadership did the anti-corruption crusade. You know what Georgia did? They actually fired 15,000 police officers and prosecuted 1,000 government officials. In fact, the remaining police officers that stayed, they increased their salaries by 1,200%. So if you are receiving 1,000 news, you receive 12,000 news. You know what happened? Every citizen of Georgia got confidence, of course, before their contestation with Russia. They got confidence in the system that at least this leader will save us. So I say this to every leader, that if you pursue what is right, McKinney will like you, Bo will love you. Under APC, under SLPP, but what we have not seen is actually a system that will say, no, this is working for us. So it can be tear irritating, but
gentlemen, please continue to stay with me in the studio. Kadiatu, please hang on with us there on Zoom, and to the audience, stay with us. Let's hear from, you know, the ordinary citizens and residents. Our production unit went out to do a vox pop to hear the submission of the ordinary man on their thoughts and perspective on this very topic. Let's hear from ordinary citizens.
Well, in that report, then clearly spelled out say there was corruption in the past regime. So with the incoming presently, this administration, I think say corruption they happen, it still they happen. Probably, but this government here, one of the things we'll be glad for in that GTT report, after the recommendation and everything, you understand? It's like the Commission of Inquiry, I think, now be option, you understand? But this government here don't pass that into a law that say any other government can. Now law check the stewardship of the past administration, you understand? So that make I'm so happy for this government, and I think so we'll give them kudos for that. But for say corruption they happen, and that it still they happen.
Like the business what they do, they sell, they see money they flow, they see projects there, they see company them, they see investors in the country, they see prices there like normal. For the government 2018, when they say they can't have power, they say one of us will buy rest 60,000, but now rest at 1 million. Yes, so you see this regime is worst. Our worst, for me and from founding country, are the worst ever regime this. Like today, we papa then this we salon be dark, but then we go to a darkest city. So the previous government and try give lights, open man the there, business will flow, make poses there. So you don't see, but this current regime here, the worst. The worst. I can remember the first way and the schematic power, they say 90 days, they give lights. I see out me eye. Before 90 days, lights day. Lights they say until 1 month, 2 months, lights never go. But the regime when they come, if they do today, 1 day, they say other area back and give other lights. So you don't see this regime is worst. I worst ever regime this.
I can still support for say the previous government was highly corrupt. Highly corrupt. I guess on deputy minister, she's a female and they call name. If they live like a room in Pala. Before they say 3 months, now estate to be like IMAT. If they on a agriculture 3. So I wonder how comes that woman raise that money within 6 months for building care house then? Of course, because one thing I get me thought so I can say credibility inside salon 80% will corrupt and 20% credible. So for tell us the corruption in the present government.
I believe say the first thing this past government they suffer by corruption too much by this present government now. But like I see say like I don't believe say we get anything way go able show say difference there because like this past present government they get corruption too much, you know. So like then they own I believe say sooner they follow you for prove them for say past government current government corruption the same for me as well are the same. Well, like how them be the same Abu everything but are the same people but like this past government we will see something where at least some money be the flow but like now money need the flow as well. So like I believe say this current government get lapses more than the past government.
Very interesting submissions there, varying views from, the ordinary citizens. But this brings me back to Andrew Lovely. How powerful do you think our citizens have been in governance?
They know our price. I mean, for those people who are talking with no insult intended, you give them T-shirts, you give them 20,000, and you tell them to come and queue, they vote. So if you don't have independent means, you will not have independent voice. Hardly do you see political parties actually talking about what is going to be the strategy for youth empowerment, for Bo, for youth empowerment for McKinney. So it's actually a sorry state of affairs. So we have this situation where even the public is now polarized. We have facts. Depending on where you stand, something you can 1 + 1. If I say 2, the person no, that 2 in West Bends more. Because we all have facts. It's all about where do I stand in relation to power and livelihood. So, and the saddest thing is we have this situation now where even for MPs, we want our members of parliament to be corrupt. We want our judges to be corrupt because we do not see the state as an entity that should deliver services. So when there is a case in court, what is common among many Sierra say that case they move our car. We don't even want the judges to give justice. So that MP, that man, they need even kind of a constituency again. Because from where that man, I go tell and say, Pekin sick, it's unsafe. We will be in the campaign for him. So that is the reality of the politics. So it behoves politicians. We only hope one day we'll have a set that will say, you know what, our people have suffered too much. Let us have a blueprint that will move them forward. But what we're seeing, and I continue to reiterate this thesis, is likely about change of personnel and inherit the machinery without changing the condition that generates underperformance, and it's the condition that we want to change.
I'll ask this again from this angle. The president's traveling has cost the country quite a lot of money. And it became a very serious issue a few years ago where citizens in some of the vox pops we did were concerned about the president's travel and the expenditure that is incurring on the nation's budget. But the response to that was the president in a video, ladies and gentlemen, at the Continue for Fly. So this brings us back to, again, I'll ask now, Honorable Bamichidi, how powerful have the people been in governance?
How powerful?
Have the people been in governance? The ordinary man, the citizens, the electorate.
They don't have choice. Just imagine you ask the man say I continue for fly. That's I go sit down, go for money or campus and around. Simple logic. Any other thing you ask me, I won't say. Because this is what the seriousness we have to take the electorate. That's our concern. And that's everybody is drifting apart. All man now they make it like staff ground. Every day you walk in the streets, motorbike siren, Are we in Somalia? These are Somalia, it's like a staff drum. They started with an S. Saudi get one, Shakito get one, this one get one. This is all wrong. It's only one sign for the president or the vice president and finish. We don't have to have creating all this subdom in this country. These are some of the basic things that the society frown on, but nobody not get in mind for talk certain children. They are going to ask me this question. I kept on thinking about whose direction the chemical go. I kept on asking myself the question, whose direction the chemical. But the point is, like when they came here, I said to them, they go past that terrorist bill. When they go for that party of that terrorist act, and they don't pass that law day. But we smile about it, and they gave me reason. But these are the things we're talking about. We should say truth to power. Not being insulting, but sometimes let us say them they won't understand. But most of the time, everybody's looking for their own selfish interests. And that's to move away from that. APC will come, because Pakaba won this thing before. He said that the last hostess at the GI under his regime, I think the last one was Charles Magai, less Leone Hospital, because he don't give them. So, which means coming back to start all over again. And that's why the government missed the trajectory of good governance and transparency. Because we started making comments, comments that was not necessary. Allow the investigation to go before, they will see how they go. Now you can come up with a bunch of criminals. These are very negative things that they talk. And that is why we should try to make sure in governance structure is that to make sure you are transparent. Look at the amount of money they're using now compared to what happened last 10 years. It's so much. Look at the whole of Peninsula. Houses are about $1.something million. Then that case with the same big like and big housing. Now, wood money they play, that is, you have to curtail it. But you have to cover up. But the way some people are just spending this money, that is why we're having problems with international donors. They have an embassy here, they have everything here. Let us slow down, hasten slowly. Take 10 kilos to go see in gold. But if we really make lavish money, then people don't take us serious.
Let's come to Honorable Abdul Karim. The President's commitment during the inauguration, the tone, the facial expression in the delivery of his speech, especially at that point where he spoke about the 3 wars he was going to rage, you would see some amount of certainty, sincerity, and commitment to the fight against corruption. The GTT report itself, perhaps you would say, could be a guide as to if maybe the administration did not know where errors can be made. It could be perhaps a document to say, lessons learned, let's look at these lessons and learn from them so we don't come and make these mistakes. But what we've seen is almost a direct opposite of that situation. Why do you think that is the case? This administration criticized and condemned your mistakes, yet they have made some of the same mistakes, in some cases by submissions of the engagements we've had with people, in some instances even worse. Why do you think that's the case?
Thank you very much. To answer your question directly, let me go to this here. We had a government that came into power and that was busy with politicking rather than addressing the issue of welfare that has to do with the people. And in the process, we also had good citizens who were Sierra Leoneans who were justifying every wrong step of the government. I have said this for want of words that I pity President Bio. When he started, imagine how he started. I listened to Kadia Chukwuma and I was asking myself quietly and I was smiling. Was she in Sierra Leone, actually? You had the situation of the bank governor who was booted out. You had the issue of the anti-corruption commissioner before the tenure. There is a tenure because she was doubting if there is a tenure. There is a tenure. What happened is, whilst they were booting those with tenure, there was a situation in which civil society people were saying, oh, it be happened to the last bank governor OBD, not a new thing. So it was a gang up against the people. And I listened to my brother, he said it should not be just a change of personnel. It has to be a change of building a system. Let me say this, Brother Lavali. When the people vote, they vote in a government, they vote in opposition. But the trust of the people, as we saw from 2012 to 2018, has not changed. And that trust is also in the civil society. The agitation we saw in the civil society, the civil space, the kind of banter we saw from 2012 to 2018. In fact, before the audit report was coming out, you get programs upon programs with civil society organizations. So the question is, what has changed? No government by itself and its mechanism with no pressure from the citizens can get it right. And when you have a situation in which today I relax every day and I look at my brother, a senior citizen, who was an active civil society person. Today he is telling the chief minister, I am older than you in the SLPP. But these were the guys that were parading all over the place with civil society umbrella, covering their face with civil society. And that's why we see even the civil society space has lost relevance. So it's not just a question of saying we don't change the system. Yeah, as politicians, we don't banter over words. What we do normally is we bring out the odds of, take for example, one of the things that is killing our current economy. Who has not seen this? Who has not read this? We have a situation in which people collect withholding tax. Even in the office of the chief minister, they collect withholding tax and they don't pay back to government to NIA. It happens in ETSA. It happens with the Ministry of Health. It happens all over the place. Until we have pressure coming not just from the opposition, but also we saw this. Imagine it was my uncle, AP Koroma, who was at 98.1. He was being challenged by civil society organizations. Today the civil society space is meant for documentations. They speak on issues of equating all the parties that are the same. What we need to do as a citizen is to hold this current regime accountable for what they promise us. Making it equal. APC and SLP is the same as my brother wants to make it. It's deception to the highest degree. And as citizens, we must ask for more. It's not just the political class. And interesting thing is, even most of the current ministers were also in the civil society space now. They were there. And these were the people agitating all over the place.
I can't help but notice that Andrew Labani has some... You want to respond to...
Definitely. Honorable, thank you very much for those comments. So I cannot speak for the rest of civil society. I can just talk for IGR, the Institute for Governance Reform. The way we measure ourselves not just by the radio appearances, television appearances, the blast we make, but we measure ourselves by the quality of evidence we bring to bear on the table, and then how those recommendations are taken on board. So at any time we publish a report, we ask under APC, under SLB, we ask ourselves which recommendations are they going to take on board, and we try A, to influence, and B, if influence is not taken, we come on air. So Honorable, you're right. So you have a lot of civil society and NGOs. As a matter of fact, this should not really be a banter between civil society and the political parties. But I think I'm just compelled to respond to some of these queries. So we have quite a lot of CSOs that really, from where we stand, we feel embarrassed by the positions some of them take. And but as a matter of fact, it's their right. So if you go to America, you have the NDI, National Democratic Institute, and they have the IRI, International Republican Institute. These are NGOs supporting political parties. It just behoves you, if you are supporting a political party, be clear about it, that I am a civil society supporting this. But don't hide under the cloak of neutrality, and then you try to create, to promote a political agenda. So I don't see us scoring political points. Honorable, the next in line for SLPP eminently is APC. So for the next in line for APC eminently is SLPP.
Agreed.
So for if we say we do not see a change in systems, we only see a change in personnel, we do not want what happened yesterday, what we are seeing happening today, to befall us tomorrow. So, and as a matter of fact, really, we are providing this as a feedback, because it's not just a feedback coming from my head, it's a feedback coming from research evidence. So, how do you see political parties actually, political party leaders saying, this and this and this are the things I want to change? And like I said, and I continue to insist, it becomes very refreshing when you have political parties saying, we know this is bad. Like, for example, this whole thing about polarization. We will never win if one party believes that under SLPP, this is going to be the turn of the Mendes. Under APC, this is going to be the turn of Timnis and Limbers. We will never win with that. In fact, we did a research with the University of Chicago, wherein we looked at 150 appointments, because we asked ourselves, what are these positions that people fighting over? So we listed 150 appointments, from director of this to minister of this to ambassador. And then we ask ourselves, where are these people from? So these are the ministries on the appointment, 150 appointments under bill. Then we say, under Kroma, who occupy this position? We ask. Under Kaba, who occupy these positions? In fact, we fail to publish that paper because we do not want to stir up polarization. But one of the things we did was to look at where are these people coming from? What has changed? If you come from Mendeline, you are an appointee under SLPP. What has changed? Because SLPP Kennyman has given 4 or 5 ministerial appointments under SLPP. What has changed? What has changed if APC, 5 people from Port Loko have been given ministerial director positions under APC? What has changed? If I come from Moyamba, if you take 20 appointments, you send them to Moyamba, nothing will change. The only thing that will change is the system that has to change. The system that will say, this is how we are going to make contracts fair. Because if you make contracts fair, if you award contracts fairly, you know what that means? The best supplier will get the goods. You're talking about quite a number of contracts, supply, for example, which I entirely agree with. For example, the supply of vehicles, vehicle supply my chiefs. So if we are not efficient about how, so if we have a situation where somebody say, no, if I buy 100 bus, just supply no more 50, who will do the balance? It's a problem. We have a situation where at any time a Sierra Leonean crosses Mashaka to Jue, to Songo, you pay monies directly to Chinese. So these are the things, these are the inefficiencies that we are presiding over, which we are calling politics. So I will look for a day where Parliament will say, we have NACIT that people are contributing monies to. We want NACIT to do another toll road. We don't need to go to China to borrow money for toll road. Had NACIT constructed that toll road, which I know we have the monies from what is contributed to fix a toll road, we will have been contributing those monies to Sierra Leone. So that's the frustration, the depth of frustration that I come from. I'm not trying to create an equivalence that, it becomes a crime when people say, the things that were happening yesterday were happening today. The things that are happening today there's a tendency for them to happen tomorrow because we are not seeing any change in the attitudes of politicians. Nothing will stop me from saying that because I know that's the truth.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, you were going to say.
3 good years I've been in. In fact, I am going to write a personal letter to AYB appreciating your role. 3 good years I've been advocating for kids who've been stopped from taking OAS. The other day, I almost threatened the minister that I was going to take those kids out of the streets. I was on all platforms of social media. I was in AYV. Not even a civil society organization comes. Let me tell you what happens. In the 2023 audit report, the audit report is now saying, though the kids were deprived from taking the WAS, government was paying for more than the number that were actually taking the WAS. So who is eating the money? And you still have civil societies in Sierra Leone. Let me say this, Andrew. Go to Liberia. You have civil society who keep the balance. They don't care who is in government. If the opposition raises an issue that's of national concern, they join you to hold government accountable. If the ruling government goes to opposition again and they raise an issue that's of national concern, they join hands to ensure, because the effectiveness of democracy is not just in the hands of political parties. Until we learn that it's that balance we miss. It's that balance we miss. And if we don't get that right, you understand, since the days of Bamichidi and others in parliament, he will tell you if it's only parliament we depend on to hold government accountable, it will not suffice the space. There are issues right in before us. Go to Bo Hospital. I was in one of the sister TV stations, and I listed that if you have a minister of agriculture who cannot perform above 25%, that minister should be fired. That's a recommendation from me as a politician. Who else have echoed that? Is it not in the report? You have a chief minister who goes around monitoring other ministries to ensure we have effectiveness, and he's not paying in his ministry. They are not paying withholding tax, and everybody keeps quiet. And you want to think we all should accept, oh, it's the same, APC, SLPP. If we continue that narrative to our kids, what we create is a situation in which everybody becomes complacent and say, there is not going to be a Sierra Leone that will change. I say, if you're going to change the systems, if you're talking about change in Sierra Leone, some of us, let me say this, Andrew. I came from a strong religious background. I was in a theological school. When I said, no, what I see today, I am not comfortable with. And that is why what I'm saying here today, even if APC comes to power, because I believe in what you believe in, I'll still challenge the system to say, this is wrong if it is wrong. No, but what we see in Sierra Leone is, we sneak the debate depending on if my friends are in power. That's the situation.
It goes over and beyond.
That's the situation.
It goes over and beyond that. And
I am going to say. Let me just land. I am saying I will list more than 7 to 11 issues, national concerns. Who is not concerned about having 170 kids not taking ones? And yet still, Il Salon, for example, who championed under the APC days to be a civil society group for education, said nothing. Who will sit in Sierra Leone and see that the mortuary in Bo, that is taking the entire region, including if there is an accident today, including my life, if I'm in the southern region, that's the mortuary I'm supposed to go. The fees are down. And nobody says nothing. I have raised all those issues. So I am saying, in as much as I accept what he said, that we need to build systems of change and every other thing, I am also asking him to bring collaboration. When last did you engage the opposition on some of your reports? When last?
I do that all the time.
No, you don't. You go to ask us questions to make you get our input. When I talk about engagement, you understand? You come with the report, we sit as opposition party, we engage ourselves. It is not happening.
No, let me just.
You cannot build systems. You cannot build systems.
Gentlemen, I'm going to have to put a pause on your banter temporarily. We'll get back to that.
Can I clarify? Just 20 seconds. So there is bad civil society, there is good civil society. What you're saying,
and 90% are bad.
No, what he's saying is totally right. But just a little bit of point of disagreement that I have. The day political parties provide solution. If you talk about Liberia, in Liberia you can see an opposition party saying, this is how we think we can go with this. Say for example, on justice and the rule of law. Do you know what will happen? The day we see opposition parties actually provide a solution, then you begin to see civil society right behind you. I can pledge a lot of my colleagues, you know, Sierra Leone is...
Andrew Lovely, would you say Sierra Leone has a current government that listens to solutions proffered by the opposition?
Oh yes.
And when I say opposition, the APC itself is not the only opposition. There's NGC, there's C4C, there's all of them.
But so you see, that's the
please ask the question again. It does not get it doesn't get the question right. No, it does. No. I want to help you.
Gentlemen, there's only one gentleman, there's only one presenter in this show, and that's Vivian's Wheel. Please, let's keep the ship steering on properly. Andrew, again, I'll ask you. You say yes. What are the instances you would mention? Where would be a proof that the current administration does listen to the opposition? And again, I did not say main opposition, I said the opposition. Which factors? All the other political parties.
Definitely. Let me disappoint you that I will not give instances, or let me tell you why we are failing.
Okay. Put it there. Honorable Bamichidi, do you agree with him that the current administration listens to the opposition?
I've not made my point.
I'll come to that.
They are preempting his own.
Yes, I've not made my point.
He has responded. He said he would not mention. So just take a pause.
Okay, from that point on.
From your perspective, would you say the administration listens to the opposition?
I've been sitting in some of this podium for the last 10, 15 years, I've seen opposition come and go. I've seen what they call it, civil society. This is the worst time in my life I see civil society joking for power and then forgetting that role they're supposed to be doing to the people.
No, that's not the question I
because
asked.
They're not doing it.
No, the question I asked was, does this current administration listen to the opposition?
Well, sometimes they do, but the point...
I asked because he's saying the opposition should be proffering solutions. Does the administration listen to opposition?
Do the opposition proffer solution? One question. Second is they don't.
We don't.
In the sense that
we don't.
Both political parties.
Gentlemen, it cannot be enforced. It cannot be enforced.
Can I land now?
Hold on. Honorable Bamichidi, please land.
The reason I called his attention, they go pass bill, the parliament terrorist law. I said, look, come on from this point. Let us come from this point. We have the numbers. When you have the number, make sure you put your foot down and put it down on record. Posterity historian will go there and say, AKK was doing something in this country. He mentioned it here. But most of the time, everybody is looking. See, what about him? Everybody is looking to the system to provide basic things. So you don't get my for telling too.
Okay, so I'll put a pause on your submission and come back to Angela Villi. So your point is the opposition, again, not the main opposition, the opposition, all the other political parties, do not proffer solutions
the opposition have an obligation. They have an obligation to build coalitions. A, to proffer solutions, and B, coalitions around those solutions.
So what is the role of the opposition now? Sorry, I'm tying this back to the premise of the conversation. What is the role of the opposition now in the implementation of the GTT report's recommendations, which, from your submissions here today, seem that many of those recommendations have not been practiced? What's the role of the opposition?
So definitely they can take contract by contract. Say we know, for example, this contract, there is a problem with this contract. How do we fix this? So, you know, people go to parliament, they agree on these things, and they only disagree over who comes to power. That's my problem. So it will be difficult for you to have civil society actually toe certain line. Honorable, I challenge you, the day you see, for example, a particular position, say for example, passport contracts. Passports. One of the most expensive places to buy passport is Sierra Leone. The day you as opposition say, we are reviewing the passport contract, you know what? I will pay for that hall. Let me commit myself. I will pay for that hall. I will sit in that meeting. I will pay for the media to come there. But if we say, let's come and sit and say, let's shout about things that are going bad without it being solution centered, it will be difficult for you to get the huge swath of civil society behind you.
Now let's focus on Solution Center and head back to Kadiatu on Zoom. Again, thanks for your patience following the conversation through Zoom. As we look at the solutions now, still on this GTT report, there's quite a lot of money, the country's money, that was spent on the GTT report. And there are recommendations in it. How do we as a nation come now to get the current administration to right the wrongs mentioned of the previous administration?
Vivian, can you please come again?
I was asking
the line was
Kadiatu,
scrambling.
Now moving on to the solutions. The GTT report, we spent a lot of money as a nation on that report. We had to bring a foreign judge to the city. We spent a lot of money. The work was done. There are recommendations. How can the nation now, whether it's civil society, it's the media, it's the opposition, how can Sierra Leoneans now get the government to right the wrongs of the previous administration that was captured in the GTT report?
Okay, so one way that I think the current government can right the wrongs of the past government, which is the APC, is to be intentional about holding people accountable. Earlier on, you mentioned about there was a case that has to do with fraudulent receipts at the presidential office, but you mentioned that there was no investigation being done. So I think as a nation, as a citizen, and as a Sierra Leonean, we have to be intentional. Because when we talk about good governance, it has to do with transparency, accountability, and public scrutiny. But what challenge we are having in Sierra Leone, most of our leaders don't want to be scrutinized by the public. They think that because I'm in charge or I'm this minister, you know, I am not accountable to public scrutiny. I would like to go back a little bit to what my colleague was talking about, Andrew, that Honorable Abdul mentioned about. Honorable asked if I have been in Sierra Leone. I want to say I have spent my entire life in Sierra Leone. I am a Sierra Leonean. So I know what is happening in my country. Like you mentioned about civil society activists, in every profession we have good, we have bad people. So it depends on the integrity of the people. So I want to say that if we don't want to repeat history again in terms of fraudulent contract, in terms of poor accountability, wastage of government funds, and issues that surround unexplained wealth by government officials, the Anti-Corruption Commission has a very great role to play. Like I said earlier on, they need to put things in place or review the ACC Act so that they will have the security of tenure, so that the commissioner will be more independent and credible to do their work. Because imagine if the president elected a commissioner and then there is an issue that is associated with corruption, with the government, with the president's office. What do you think? Even the common Sierra Leonean knows what will happen. And looking at the videos of some of the common Sierra Leonean in the streets, trust me, they have lacked trust in our government. They have really failed the young people of Sierra Leone. Can you hear me?
I'm asking you, is this not a test case for Sierra Leoneans who get these appointments to prove their integrity by doing the work of the people? Did you hear that?
Yes, I hear you. Like I said, sure, this is a test case to show that we are different. Because when President Bio took over, he talks about transparency and accountability. So when you talk about transparency and accountability, you should be ready to fight this corruption that we are actually talking about. So my answer is yes.
Actually, that's not the question I was asking. You spoke about, getting the Anti-Corruption Commission and not getting tenure, security of tenure. So I'm asking you, you're saying it would be quite challenging for a presidential appointee to still carry out investigations. That's the angle I'm asking you from. Is this a test case of the integrity of the people who get these presidential appointments to do the work of the people in the interest of the people and not in the interest of the president or the political party?
Sorry, you are actually coming in. The line was actually breaking. So
sorry,
my answer is yes.
Connectivity.
Can you hear me?
Okay, since there's
so like I said,
there. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, we'll try to get back to Kadiatou at some point if we get proper connection and time to do that. We'll now head to Studio 2 and join the live audience in the studio to hear their contribution. So in the studio tonight, we have live audience of journalism and broadcasting students from the Limkokwin University of Creative Technology from the Sierra Leone campus. Let's hear from you. Questions and submissions there? Yes, please. Please start with your name and move to your questions. So we'll make it, let's do 60 seconds per contribution.
Okay. So my name is Rachel Williams, journalism student at the Limkokwin University. I'll start by a quote from the former president, Barack Obama, which says, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek." So with this, I want to say thanks to the panelists, but more especially my question, I would direct it to Honorable Abdul Karim. As a legislative house, parliament, your role is to lobby or advocate, make laws, and also do oversight on ministries. So you made mention, or you stated few ministries that you outlined, like the Ministry of Health, Agriculture, so on. Therefore, your persistent comments were the poor performance of these ministries. The House of Parliament is unique in terms of diversification when it comes to representation by political parties, especially the two major political parties. What have you been doing through those committees, which I believe you are part of? What have you been doing in terms of like speaking up for the common man or holding these ministries to account? Instead of ministers or honorables or people that serve the nation, for them to even, let's say, seek medication or seek better service condition from other countries or overseas countries, why are you at the House of Parliament not able to really reinforce your power in bringing these ministries to account, MDAs and agencies and all? And this House is responsible for the approval. The President can appoint, but this House is there to solely approve. You vent out. Is it that the House of Parliament is still based on shadow things? That's my question. Thank you.
Next person.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Josephine. I'm a journalism student at the Leone University. I just want to make a comment based on all what I've heard from you guys. And I would like to appreciate your comments and discussions here this evening. But I would like to say we've been hearing about corruption, both in this present government and the past government, and nothing has changed. And also, what I've seen in Sierra Leone is the area of tribalism, nepotism, and the word corruption. But it still has not made any change in Sierra Leone. We are all young people seated here today, and your regime will pass one day. And whatever, so whether the past or the present, we have an effect or an impact in our lives as young people. And also, I would not want to be a young Sierra Leonean, worked in an office, or after graduation want to have a job. Then they will ask me, whose part Nasalo you come on? Are you from the east or the west? Are you from the north or the south? I want to be that confident Sierra Leonean that when I work in an office, whether in the anti-corruption or any area in my qualification, let my paper speak, not my tribe or which part of Sierra Leone I'm coming from. And in the area also of corruption, I don't know if you, the panelists, have idea of this word CBD that is spreading all over the place. Because I've seen it's a new thing that the government have bring in Sierra Leone. Actually, corruption starts from the home. When you fight corruption in your house, you take it to the schools. From the schools to the universities, from the universities to the government offices, and then you question the president. So all I have to say is, whatever foundation you lay, remember, you have young generation coming after you.
Okay, let's hear from the next person.
All protocols observed. My name is Emilio Darrell Demarc from Leone University of Creative Technology. My question is, Mr. Lavali, your colleague mentioned about transparency and accountability. So, for us aspiring young people who would intend to make Mama Salon a better place, why won't you give us instances of your current government listening or taking solutions from the opposition? We want to know, we want instances, because this, let's say, it will kill our spirit for us to know that, okay, as you have said, you will not be able to give us instances. How would we be glad, or how would we be happy to say, okay, fine, they are giving us instances, so we'll use these instances and we'll use these solutions to make a better, to make Mama Salon a better place for us all. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll have two more. Yes. Go ahead, let's have two more.
Good evening, Honorable. Ms. Hassan Ijazi, a final year student at the Leone University. My question is for Honorable AKK for the opposition. First of all, the first question is, do you first of all accept all the findings made in the GTT reports by this present government? Secondly, most of the findings that were made in terms of corruption and mismanagement also, we are also some of the findings made by Lara Taylor Pierce, which is the Auditor General. There is something called CPI, Corruption Perception Index, which simply is telling you that these, in terms of corruption since 2012 to now, right, there is an improvement in fighting corruption. So do you accept that this present government is far better than yours in terms of combating corruption in the country? And also, I want you to tell the people, if you've been, let's say, being elected, your party being elected in 2020 election, what are some of the things you put in place or solution you provide in combating election within the party system and also in Sierra Leone? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can we have the last contributor? Yes. Let's hear from the last person. Okay, we'll just move on to get the text messages. Well, the messages that have been sent on our Facebook page. We would get Emmanuel Nyake Momo to read the messages from our Facebook. Okay, so let's hear from Emmanuel Nyake Momo. Good evening, Emmanuel.
Good evening, Phoebian. And of course, it's very sparkling here as well tonight in our inbox, but we are trying to take the messages in line with the conversation. Of course, Faliwa Kudohova says, Commission of Inquiry is an interpretation of the overt intentions. The sole objective of the SLPP government was to unfairly malign and victimize APC. Of course, this is not fair, according to Kudohova. And of course, Minister Abdul Denke says, even in this current government, our judiciary has a serious problem. These are the same problems highlighted in the GTT report. And of course, Michael Menjo says the current government is not serious about managing the resource of the country. Check on the following areas: agriculture, electricity, and education. You will find out that there is a missing link between what was said and what has been done. Those are the messages that we can take for tonight, Phoebian.
For reading out those messages. Before I go to the panelists to respond to those messages, may I also remind our audience that we invited the Ministry of Information and Civic Education to be a part of a conversation, and the Deputy Minister, Abdulaziz Bawo, was supposed to be in the studio as part of the conversation. Unfortunately, few hours to the program, he reached out to the production unit that he cannot be part of the program. He cannot be in the studio, so the team gave an option to join the conversation virtually through Zoom. Unfortunately, he turned down that alternative. So we had extended an invitation to the government to get their own side of the conversation. With that reiterated, I'll now get your responses, gentlemen, to the messages and submissions of the people in the studio. I'll start with you, Honorable Bamichidi, and then we'll come this way.
One thing, accountability and transparency in terms of good governance. The parliament, that is why we formed that Parliamentary Service Commission. For them, because it has been misconstrued, they should go back to the original drafters of this Parliamentary Commission. Because some of these things you are saying, most of this problem, we foresaw it, that we should make sure and improve condition of service as well as the welfare of the staff. But the point is, I think after Bundu, then what's the new clerk, things started going para different direction. I keep telling them, go and look that's the Bible for the Parliamentary Service Commission. That is, you can still be independent, but at the same time, don't know by our constitution, you have the executive and the legislature intertwined. But depends on the void of partisan thinking. You can able to run that institution. He was part of the staff at the Parliament then, when we were living there. So what we should be doing now, let us think and make the government accountable. But we don't do it. All man, you look and say, now the person, what's passing? Oh, that is one thing I don't like. Pakaba said to me, I say, hey, pa, not to do that kind of thing anymore. But that's what you had a listening speaker then. From Pakuti, anything they will ask us. Because we are the barometer of the public. So now, in other words, now most of these other things, you are part of the active side of the things. But transparency and good governance is the bedrock of this government. That's what they came up with, that's what they profile when they were running election. So that they should try to maintain it. And to be a listening government means you listen to shades of opinion. But sometimes it's very difficult to listen when somebody wants to go tell you it is ready.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bamichidi. I'll come to you, Andrew Lovely.
So there was a particular question for me. Thank you very much, brilliant students, by the way. Thank you very much for those comments. So instances where government is listening to opposition. I think I try to explain that. So clearly, we are not seeing positions, say for example, solution-centered positions. It's very easy for someone to say, this is what is happening that is bad. In fact, we at IGR, we decided to elevate our conversation beyond that. Because it's very easy for people to say, I don't have water. Do you know what is difficult to say? It's the thing that is difficult is to say, people don't have water, but we know these are the ways for you to get water. But it's very simplistic so I think that's really where, and I really want to encourage my colleagues in political parties, 2 points that I'll conclude with. One, from the opposition end, how do they actually take leadership in terms of profiling governance solution? And I like the lady that mentioned, I don't want to live in a country where I'm judged for a job on the basis of my surname. I don't think any young person will want that. And the best way for us to move away from that is when we have solutions to some of these things. I am not seeing solutions at all. All what I'm seeing is the trading of scandals. And definitely I cannot weigh into that. But the day we begin to say, this is the problem we are having with water, and this is how we get water. We have a situation where from one region, and people continue to say people like comparing. Definitely. It's always good to compare because we have a tendency of having a total repeat of the situation that we find ourselves. So we have a situation where under this regime, under the past regime, every Jack and Jean nominated from State House sails through Parliament.
That's not true.
Thank you very much, Andrew Lovely. And Honorable Abdul Karim.
First of all, let me say I listened to my brother, and I was here last week, and I was giving all the solutions to the energy sector. I was giving alternatives.
I did not listen to that one.
And that's one. Secondly, we were at the party office when we read a press release on the drug situation in Sierra Leone, starting from the Kush. In fact, in the Kush situation to this current cookie situation, I was one who moved the Parliament opened up state of emergency on Kush. That again, you did not hear. And the opposition did not have a solution. Let me come. No, it was a solution if implemented by government as it was prescribed.
It's not a solution to
No, come on. State of health emergency at the time the Kush was ravaging our youth. It's not a solution.
We have people coming.
It was not a solution by you.
What?
So you were celebrating that our youth were dying. Let me go further. I'm just listing the things we've done as a position of calling this government. In fact, somebody asked, before I go to you, you were asking a question, what role is Parliament playing? You see, I don't know the thoughts of Bamichidi on this when it was a national issue. But one day I'll write Andrew Lovely at the end of this 5 years to apologize to the people of Sierra Leone. When we had the situation of PR, they were all over the place, trumpeting the advantage of PR.
I'm going to have a minute to respond to that.
Gentlemen, I'm time bound. You're actually...
Okay. Mm-hmm. And that is how they deceived the public, thinking, oh, the PR was a better option. And that is how, when we had the situation of MPs being removed, they were all over the place justifying government actions. Today, we had a parliament that is as it is as a result of the agitation of people like Andrew Lavalley. I am saying this in camera because there will come a time, like my younger sister said, he doesn't want to live in a country where he grew up and he starts to ask questions. Who are the people who led this thing to happen? When they brought it, we wrote several letters to government, writing, we had engagement with government. In fact, what they started was the situation of a midterm census. He was again championing that campaign. That is how we mixed up everything in our governance structures.
If you don't give me a chance to respond,
you write a letter, you write a report. After that has been done, today we have a parliament where go to Poloko, for example, the votes of political parties do not reflect the representation in parliament.
Compared to Bo.
You go to Bo, the votes of the APC does not reflect the representation in parliament. So we have a system in which what they profile at the time, we also profile a solution. If by-election is the situation you have a problem with, whereas if I win in my constituency and I die, let's have a system in Sierra Leone. It could be our own system in which the political parties send in another representation.
Honorable Abdul Karim, thank you very much, gentlemen. This is why I was very mindful of how you guys would have utilized the time. We will end today's edition of AYV on Sunday here.
Phoebe, I've been
on the panel,
we've had... My name has been called. It's just...
Andrew Lavalley, Executive Director, Institute for Governance Reform, IGR. We've had Honorable Abdul Karim Koma from the APC, Kamara, from the APC. Kadiatu Koma has been on Zoom, and we've had Honorable Bamichidi with us in the studio, and a live audience of journalism and broadcasting students from Limkokwing University of Creative Technology. We extended an invitation to the government through the Ministry of Information and Civic Education, and the Deputy Minister was to be part of the program. Unfortunately, a few hours to the program, he turned down the invitation, saying he could not be in the studio, so the team offered to send a Zoom link so he could join virtually. He also turned that down. Thank you for gracing the program. Thanks for your time and dropping your messages. And Andrew Lavalley, let me apologize for not being able to give you enough time, but I've been your presenter. I am Phoebe Swill. Thanks to our production unit. Up next is Primetime News at 9 o'clock. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye for now.